I'm recording. Okay, we're recording the session, so I'll be able to put it up. Keep in mind, tweeting and post to LinkedIn, use the hashtag 90daysMC or NZ and the hashtag NZ365guy. So feel free to, anything that kind of resonates with you, screenshots, anything like that, feel free to put them out on the socials. I've already got people starting to apply for the 90-day mentoring challenge in 2020, man. Thinking about next year already. So definitely getting some interest there. Part of that other thing that's interesting is Microsoft has asked me to scale this globally under their brand. So some new program of work coming out. I'm working on a contract with them in Seattle at the moment to take this to potentially between 500 and 1,000 people. In the financial year FY20, so it should be interesting. Mics are muted. Use chat if you use chat to kind of engage with any idea that kind of resonates with you. Although I don't really watch chat, I see what you've said afterwards. If you feel that there's content missing, once again, chuck it in the chat window. If I spark an idea that resonates with you and you want to share with others, do that. Use the chat window, and of course, take it to Facebook group. After that, can you please keep an eye on the Facebook group? If you see anybody or struggling to get in, please help them out to get into this cohort session. Recordings will be posted in 12 hours. I'll get this recording up, as I say, after I do the Northern Hemisphere time zone later today. And then, and as you see under the units now on the Facebook group, both recordings, the Southern Hemisphere and Northern Hemisphere, always been placed up there. They're there for all the episodes as well as the assignments. Please complete metrics that matter. Make sure you do that as soon as possible after either watching this video and or getting access to the assignment sheet. You know, each time the metrics that matter link in there is unique to the session. So please jump on there. Oh, finally, some more people joining, coming in, which is good to see. And what else have we got here? Facebook engagement. I have loved the videos, man. They're so good to see that this content is getting cut through. One of the videos this morning I've just watched mentioned a book that I recommended to him before the program started, which was called Company of One. And if you're planning on going independent at some point, I highly recommend this book, Company of One. It's not one of your assignments, but man, it is a powerful book for anyone considering going independent and why it's quite different than being just a freelancer, the concept of Company of One. So well worth a look, but without further ado, let's get underway. So this session, I really want to talk about Microsoft and the importance that Microsoft plays in your career and the importance of understanding how they work as an organization to benefit from it and to advance, if you like, your career. So what I'm going to do in the next 10 minutes or so, I'm going to break down the taxonomy of Microsoft. How do they operate globally? How do they operate from product development, R&D, that type of thing, to kind of give you some insights into how this organization works and how why sometimes there's a lot of misconceptions around the operating model. So first of all, I'm not sure if you've seen this, but this is where Microsoft came from. So if you looked at Microsoft 5 years ago and beyond, so before Satya come into play, this was a cartoon that was put up, and it gave the management and leadership structure of the big companies around the world. So you saw Amazon, very much Jeff Bezos at the top, and it flowing down a very traditional organization structure. Google operating a much more meshed type network of interconnections across the organization. Facebook really majorly meshed again. Apple, very interesting, as a center of the universe, all information, kind of the concept there flowed out from the center. And this was, of course, Steve Jobs there. And Oracle had, you know, engineering and this massive legal department. But one of the things that really concerned Satya coming in was the view of Microsoft. And the view of Microsoft is that there were a range of teams. So, for example, the Windows division, the Biz Apps division, the games division, etc. And basically, each division was out to kind of shoot the other or hold the other to ransom. So there was very much a mentality of not teaming or working together. It was every team out for itself. And they had what's called a stack ranking system internally. Even employees basically had to outperform their peers within their team if they are going to progress, and kind of like not necessarily in a polite competitive way. And so everybody was stack ranked back at this time, and every team was broken into kind of 3 divisions: sales, marketing, and R&D or engineering. And so what happened is that those 3 divisions often almost run independently of each other. There seemed to be very little collaboration between them. But Microsoft is, back now to #1 position. It was really Satya taking this, this satire out there and going, we need to address this in our organization. What would be interesting to see is what this cartoon would look like today. I'm not sure, but this is where we were 5 years ago as Satya was coming into role with the previous leadership in Microsoft. And it's not just about the CEO changing in Microsoft. All the layers below the CEO have pretty much changed as well. So a lot of the people that have been long-termers under Boma back then have also moved on, that really run this kind of cutthroat sales machine, which is all around licenses, as well as, being very developer, if you like, centric. And so that's kind of where we were from and come to in the last 5 months. But let's take a look at how I understand it and how it affects, if you like, you and I right now. But actually, just before we go there, I'll give you an example. My first summit that I went to, when I say summit, MVP summit, was back in about March 2012. I got awarded in January the 1st, 2012. And I went to my first summit, and what shocked me was this, is that senior leadership came into the room at the start of summit in our product team, which was back then Dynamics CRM, and laid out the roadmap for the next 12 to 18 months. Now, that was great. As an MVP, you kind of got that first access, insights into what was coming, and the ability to start working with it. But what shocked me was this. Just before the session started, the doors opened and in filed a heap of Microsoft employees. And what I later discovered is that those employees were all the marketing team, mainly, that filed into the room and stood around the back of the room. And when I had a friend that actually worked on that team, and I said to him, what's up? Like, why do you all come in? And there, it's like you're hearing the stuff for the first time. And he was like, yeah, that's exactly right. Engineering have made their R&D decisions on what they're building, and the first time marketing hears about it is MVPs heard first. That's the way the organization ran. There wasn't this kind of cohesive or collaboration between the organization. So that's what it was like, 8.5 years ago when I first went in as an MVP. So that was my first-hand experience of how that operated. But let's fast forward to where we are now. And this is basically how I understand it. It's not necessarily 100% accurate, but I've done my research, and this is kind of my view of how I see it running now. You have Microsoft, the organization, made up of many different R&D or engineering teams, developer teams that work together. But I'm really not so concerned around the rest of Microsoft, whether it's Azure, Xbox, Windows, devices. What I'm interested in, of course, is these 3 areas here. Business Applications Group, and it is divided into key 3 divisions. They are marketing, engineering, and sales. That's what is in play as of now, and my understanding of the organization structure. When it comes to marketing, they own licensing and sales. Now, when I say sales, yes, sales is ultimately over in the sales side of the organization, but think of them providing the resources that are going to link off into sales. But particularly what's important to understand is the people that decide the licensing is the marketing division. It's not the engineering division. And often, my engagement is with engineers, and I see a lot of people asking engineers, why do you do this type of licensing? We don't agree with the licensing model for the new storage, or we don't agree with the P2 license or the D365 licenses for whatever product that is of interest to you, or the Teams license. Now, the thing is, it's not engineering that decides this. That is done by marketing, part of the organization. So just so you understand, that's kind of where that's coming from. So who are the big people? Who are the key people in the space? Well, first of all, you have James Phillips. And James Phillips is the head of engineering. So he's been in role now about 18 months, coming up 2 years, that he took over Microsoft Business Applications in its entirety. So in other words, he owns F&O, he owns all the stuff happening in AI, all the stuff happening in mixed reality. And he came into or taking over business applications because he'd been massively successful in establishing Power BI within Microsoft. Just as a side note, his brother, and I don't know his first name, but another Phillips inside the organization actually works or heads up as a senior leader in the Azure team. So James Phillips is what's known as a senior vice president. So he's at the top of the tree when it comes to engineering. And if you like, the massive deluge that we've had in new content and new features, etc., is him right-siding the product and really making a fundamental decision is that they were no longer going to look at Salesforce and go, what is Salesforce doing? We're going to chart our own territory. And that's why you've seen this massive investment in AI. You've seen mixed reality. You've seen kind of separation of the platform and the Dynamics applications into individual apps that are independent of the platform. That's been under his strong leadership. If you ever get a chance to hear James Phillips speak or to meet him, I highly recommend you do take that opportunity. If you want to listen to a podcast, I interviewed him about February last year. I think it was on my podcast, so feel free to go take a look at that on the Dynamics 365 show. The next key person is Alyssa Taylor. Now, she is the head of marketing. So when I remember talked about licensing and kind of messaging and any events that Microsoft run specifically around Microsoft Biz Apps. So when you look at the Biz App Summit recently, this sat squarely on her shoulder. So on her shoulders. So you think of anything from a marketing perspective, anything from a licensing perspective, that rolls up into her. So even things like how the MVP program, if you like, that has a lot to do with the influence coming out of marketing as into, how they're positioned in market, how they engage the market, the community side of the organization, anything happening around communities, etc., really sits squarely with marketing, even though they do, of course, involve engineering. And then the last area is Hayden Stafford. Hayden Stafford, once again, as Alyssa is, all three of them are all called senior or corporate vice presidents. Specifically, CVPs, corporate vice presidents. So Hayden Stafford is responsible worldwide for all sales that is in Microsoft Business Applications. So these three people, these working together, make up, if you like, what's called the SLT or senior leadership team of Microsoft Business Applications. So it's important to understand these three people. If I was you, I would be following these three people on all social media types, whether it be LinkedIn, Twitter, being the main two, that you really want to be following and listening to what they say. If one of these three blogs something, it's really important, right? It's at the top of the food chain that you're hearing that conversation from, and I highly recommend you listen up and listen to, if you like, what they're saying. So that's how I understand the organization now. You can look up all these three people, James, Alyssa, and Hayden, all on LinkedIn, and you'll find them if you want to get a bit more detail around their background. But these are the people that, if you like, affect your or my career today, and that what they are doing from a marketing, engineering, and sales standpoint makes up the ecosystem that we're operating in from Microsoft's view of the world. Okay, so what about the rest of Microsoft? How does it work? So let's say we take Microsoft HQ in Seattle. Under that, there are then what are called subsidiaries. So you have the US subsidiary, the UK subsidiary, the Australian subsidiary. In total, there are 14 subsidiaries around the world. Now, I have worked in the New Zealand subsidiary and I've worked in the Australian subsidiary. And of course, I'm starting to do a bit of work for the UK subsidiary. But predominantly, when Microsoft engaged me, I'm actually working for Microsoft HQ in Seattle. So I'm currently on a contract to them right now. When I did the learning material at the start or at the end of last year for the Power Platform, that's all up on EDX, I was contracted by Microsoft HQ in Seattle. So why it's important to understand the subsidiary is not the mothership. They are not Seattle. Seattle is where R&D is done. Yes, they have offshoots around the world, India, in Europe, they've got development centers, etc. But those centers all report into Seattle. But each subsidiary we consider just a sales arm, not just but they're the sales arm of Microsoft. So if you like, Microsoft have 14 sales regions around the world that it operates in. And so whatever geography you're in, your kind of connection will be most likely to your local subsidiary. So it's important that you understand the separation. I used to have family members say to me, you know, oh, can you tell the Excel team that they should put this feature into Excel? And I'm like, you know, they would think because I had connection in New Zealand at the time that I could do that. I'm going to explain, listen, in New Zealand, there's no software developers from Microsoft as such working on the products. They all either sit in Seattle or a dev center that reports into Microsoft HQ. So that is kind of the organization structure. So under those subsidiaries, so let's take the US subsidiary, you then have different divisions as well: marketing, sales, support, and partner. So, you know, the partner part, of course, deals with engaging with Microsoft partners. So if you're working for a Microsoft partner, they will always flow up to a local subsidiary. They will never flow up to Seattle or HQ or Redmond, if you like. They never actually directly flow up outside of that subsidiary. You'll have local support, sales. A lot of support is also handled by HQ, but there is generally local marketing and sales. But predominantly, when you think of a subsidiary, they are a sales engine of Microsoft. Their job is to have the relationship with the customers and with the partners and drive sales for Microsoft. Some key roles that we see under sales is a technology solution professional, a sales solution professional, and then the global black belts. They're the common ones that are in the technical side, and why I'm just focusing on these are potential roles that people consider going into Microsoft. Of course, there are other roles. So, for example, those of you that know Chris Huntingford, he's just gone in, but he's gone under the partner area of the UK subsidiary in his case. So this kind of gives you a feel of a bit of the org structure. And then if we look at where does that team I showed you before, they sit out squarely out of HQ in their operations. Hayden Stafford is the only one, if you like, that has massive influence down across each of the 14 subsidiaries. He'll have direct reports from all those subsidiaries coming back into him that then drill down and drive the actual product sales in each of those 14 subsidiary locations. So I hope that kind of gives you some sense of what it is, what's local, and then what is, if you like, corporate. So yeah, I'm hoping that's kind of made it clear, and in the Q&A session, be interested if you've got any questions around this. So what I want you to do is think about now Microsoft Local, because right now, unless you're an MVP, if you like, the most influence you have is at a Microsoft Local level. And I want to tell you about how I created a massive amount of influence when I decided that I was going to start my business in New Zealand called Magnetism to engage with Microsoft. I knew that relationship was extremely, extremely important for my success. I needed to know the right people. And so what I did is that I was living 2 hours north of Auckland in a place, a city called Whangarei. And what I would do is I would travel 2 hours each Friday to Auckland, where Microsoft's office was, and I would buy Microsoft staff that I wanted to connect with a coffee, right? So you think, now, what's the price of a coffee in your market? I think, what is it, £3 in London? I don't know, about $3.50 maybe, a price of a coffee. It's the most powerful investment tool that you have is a cup of coffee to have a conversation. Now, this is what I learned. Every time I asked a Microsoft employee, you know, I'd reach out to them, whether I used LinkedIn or, you know, found their details out another way. I would reach out and say, listen, can I meet with you for an hour? And I just got no. Nobody for a first-time meeting will give you 1 hour. It just will not happen. So don't ask for it. So I learned very quickly. I would say, listen, can I grab you for 10 minutes? I'm going to be in your office, you know, because basically most Microsoft offices has a cafe is attached to it or close by. So I'd go to the cafe and I'd pre-book always ahead. I'd say, listen, can I meet with you for 10 minutes? I'm going to be in the cafe. Love to grab you a coffee. Could you do 10 minutes? Now, most people can manage 10 minutes, right? You're making it easy. And I will go back to my story around the elephant, the rider, and the path. Remember, how easy are you going to make it for them to engage with you? So I'm the one that sets up I put the appointment in their diary once they agree. I don't ask them to send me a meeting request. I do that. I make sure I'm there early. And I always pay for the coffees. Now, do I get 10 minutes of their time? Have I ever got less than 10 minutes? Never. Have I often got half an hour, 45 minutes, or an hour? Absolutely. Because I go there and I engage with them and I offer value to them. So how do I offer value? I look at how I can help them. Is there some way that I can assist them? Is there anything that they would like me to focus on? Is there anything in the market that they're concerned about? Like, I am asking them questions. I'm not saying, what can you do for me? Do you have leads for me? What should I? No, I'm not asking anything about me. It's 100% focused on them. And of course, there's a great book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, which really messages this idea very clearly. Now, it's an optional read for you in the assignment, but I highly recommend you read it because even though it's a very old book, it gives you very good insights in how it's important to engage and build credibility. So that's what I did in New Zealand, and I established within 2 years, I got Partner of the Year for Dynamic CRM, and I picked up various projects around New Zealand, started to get international projects as well. And a lot of that came about because one coffee, one person, I met with them, engaged. There's at least 3 people I know that I engaged back then that actually moved out of the New Zealand subsidiary and went to the US subsidiary. And guess what happens? It's not the US subsidiary, sorry, to Corp. They went to US and, the head office of Microsoft. And so when I go up to Seattle, I book in and say, hey, can I catch up for a coffee? And of course, I'm a Kiwi, they're a Kiwi. It's a great form of connection. And I get to hear and connect around different parts of the organization. So for the price of a coffee, you can really build powerful connections, build relationships and credibility. So you might say, well, that worked fine for you in New Zealand. It's a tiny market. It's not going to work everywhere else. Well, in 2012, at the end of 2012, I left New Zealand, and at the start of 2013, I moved to Sydney, Australia, and I started with knowing about 2 people in Microsoft Australia. By the end of my first 12 months there, I had gone to over 80 customer presentations on behalf of Microsoft. In other words, I was the speaker on behalf of Microsoft. I was the person doing the demo on behalf of Microsoft. Now, what does that mean? If I did 80 there, how many coffees do you think I did in North Ryde, Sydney, which is where their office was, head office was? I went out, and what did I do? Can I have 10 minutes? I'll shout you coffee. Can I have 10 minutes? I'll shout you coffee. And it didn't take me long to build up a massive network, because one of the things I would say at the end of the coffee, is there anyone else that you think I should connect with if I had the chance within Microsoft? And I'd go, yeah, speak to Tom, Drew, Sil, somebody else. And of course, that would be on my next hit list. So within that first year, I did over 80 customer presentations on behalf of Microsoft because Microsoft people were bringing me in to engage on their behalf. So it works in different markets. It's not just limited to the market you're in. You can always come up with the excuse why it won't work in your area, but I say it's a powerful stepping stone, because the other thing is, I just was, for example, speaking to somebody here in London yesterday, and they have just become what we call a blue badge. They've just got employed as a full-time FTE at Microsoft. And once again, in the last year, they've been creating all these connections and points of influence inside Microsoft. And so then when job roles come up that may be attractive or where you want your career to go, your name is top of mind with these people. Why? Because they've seen you as a real person, you've built connection, and you are thinking about them, not about yourself. So it's a really important step to consider, is how are you going to build your relationships with Microsoft locally and proactively go about doing it. Okay, how do you do that then from a Microsoft corporate perspective? How do you get on the radar of, for example, the people in the engineering team, that's the most likely area you want to engage in? Well, this is where the web is your friend. The internet brings everybody close together. And I always say, identify, if you're interested or your area is field service or AI, find out what are the names of the people that from within the engineering team are talking about these things. Now, it's really easy to do this. If you go up to the Microsoft Business Applications website from a couple of weeks ago, go to the scroll down about 3/4 of the way down, you will see all the recordings of the sessions. Most of the sessions, so if you filter by AI, for example, you will find all the PMs, the product managers, that are talking about their product. So it's easy to identify who the names of the key influencers are in Microsoft. Then go and get your Googles on and do some searches and find out, do they have a blog? Do they have a Twitter account? Are they on LinkedIn? And once again, don't go asking, go adding value to them. So for example, you should be following James and Alyssa and Hayden on LinkedIn. So anytime they do a post, you get notified. You don't have to necessarily connect with them. Like I'm not suggesting that you say, hey, be my mate. Like I want to connect with you, because, you know, imagine they get a lot of those. But you can, of course, follow anybody on LinkedIn without necessarily connecting to them. And then read the team blog. Go to what's called the team blogs, which are the Microsoft team blogs. So it's basically cloudblogs.microsoft.com/Dynamics365 or powerbi.microsoft.com/blog or azure.microsoft.com/blog. Go check these out, because this is where engineering team often talk about new features, excuse me, or they'll drill into a feature set because they're getting a lot of feedback from the community. So this is how you find them. Now, I don't know if you're familiar, but Google has a thing called, what's it called? Put it in the chat if you know what Google's thing is around. You can do a save search, and anytime an article or that person's name appears on the internet, it'll send you an email and you can have it aggregated up. It's, I forget what it's called, but Google have had this feature for years. So for example, I have a watch that's called Microsoft and Acquisition. So anytime anybody breathes that Microsoft's acquiring something, I get an email in my inbox the minute something like that appears on the internet. But it's a great tool if you want to follow these key people that you feel will influence your career because they're owners of the technology that you're working in. So what you do then, read their blog, comment and amplify. So what do I mean by comment and amplify? Well, let's look at a team blog post. Here we have a team blog post, and let's look at how this page looks. So this here is a release notes for field service version 8 update release 2, right? So I took the screenshot last year. First of all, note at the top there, I'm logged in. I'm logged in as NZ365 guy. I'm using the handle. I don't use Mark Smith. I'm using the handle that they would have seen or they would have heard of around the place. The second thing is, note the rating on the article. I'm going to give them a good rating. I'm going to go, wow, great article, because when they look at the stats, it's going to be associated. NZ365 guy said this is a 5-star article. So now they're starting to see my name. Next, notice the comment. This article here has 0 comments. It has 4 shares on Facebook, 0 on Twitter, and 0 on LinkedIn. There's an opportunity right away for you to share what you're learning on LinkedIn, on Twitter, and on Facebook. Now, as part of this 90-day challenge, I don't go into Facebook in detail, but let me just say this about Facebook. Create a Facebook page that's not your normal wall that your family and friends look at. So for example, if you go to facebook.com/NZ365 guy, that is my Facebook page, right? So what that means is that's where I do the stuff around what I'm doing in the community, what's of interest, my blogs, my podcasts, my videos, they go up there. And it basically means that my family don't have to put up with all my business stuff. And of course, my business folks or the community that engage on that page don't have to see all the stuff that, I've got a funeral in the family or a wedding or something like that perhaps a lot of people are not interested in. So it allows that kind of separation. It's a very, very powerful feature. But once again, you can share that story on that Facebook page, on your Twitter account, on your LinkedIn. Now, what happens, of course, these stats are reflected back to the person actually who made this post. Now, notice down here, my photo is appearing there as well with NZ365 Guy. Why? Because I'm logged in. Very important. My name and my face are being associated together again. Now, I've just masked out my email address, but notice the comment box. Here's where I go, and I look at something in their article, something that appeals to me or has helped me, maybe one of the bug fixes or one of the enhancements, and I'm going to quote that in there. I'm going to say, wow, man, I'm so pleased you brought out this feature. Don't just say, oh, nice article, mate. Oh, pretty cool. No, be descriptive. Like, take something like you've thought about it out of what they've said and add value or ask a question, etc. Because now you're starting to get visibility in the product team as someone who's engaging, who's asking smart questions. And, you know, asking smart questions really is important. Asking any question is important, but what happens is that if you can craft questions that make people think, it actually elevates, if you like, your position. As I said, use a pull quote. Take something out of here. You know, a pull quote is you're going to take, let's say, one of those bullet points. You're going to quote who said it. Now, who said this? Note down here, Jason Cohen, Senior Program Manager, Dynamics 365 Engineering. Use their name. Hey, Jason, I really like what that you fixed that bug around retail and sign-in tools that won't run on some machines. That was a problem for me. Thanks for fixing it, right? Man, do you think people, when people post content online, are they interested in people commenting back? 100% they're interested. So this is a great way for you to start creating recognition in the product team. So what happens? The product team start going, you know, why is this person not an MVP? Why is this person? This person's pretty smart. Perhaps we should reach out and if we have a focus group or an early access program, we should be inviting this person because they seem to know our technology and they seem to offer some great insights. So I've given you 2 ways now of engaging with either the local team or the team in Redmond, the engineering team. Let's take a step further. Have you looked at Docs? When you're on Docs, do you log in, right? You can notice there, you can give feedback. We'd love to hear from your thoughts. Choose the type you'd like to provide, product feedback, content feedback, etc. Notice it's using GitHub issues there. Make sure you have your GitHub account set up so that you can comment effectively here. Use the name, you know, the same name you use on Twitter, LinkedIn, all the other places. You know, if you've watched any of my YouTube series that I've been doing each Monday, you will see I reference the need to have a consistency around your name and your image so that you start to get recognized. So comment, engage, feedback there. The next way you create visibility with the product team and add value to them is using experiences.dynamics.com/ideas. You should be logged in, signed up in this portal. You should have it on a quick access tab and be able to jump in here and either always search for, if you've got a great idea, search first, see if anyone's done it, and then amplify, you know, what they've said. Just off screen down here below, it shows who's done the top submissions. Now, you imagine, I think nobody has done more than 100 submissions. I think there's 60 submissions all up in there. So you imagine if you decided, you know that, you're going to do 1 submission a week. In 2 years, you would be at the top level here. Now, I'm sure that in the projects that you work on, the different engagements you have, you've thought of things like, I wish this product, whether it's, you know, field service, whether it's sales, customer service, the Power Play, I wish it had this thing in it, right? Ideas is where you get up there. Now, the thing is, once you post your idea, then you need to rally the troops to support your idea. So you go to Twitter and you say, hey guys, can you please up thumb this idea that I've put up here if this is something that you would like to see the product team consider. So I'll put that on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, all those type of things where your community is asking them to vote up your idea. Because what's it going to do? You're going to get more visibility. You're going to get more engagement. You're going to be seen more and more as a thought leader. Next, take a look at Microsoft on YouTube. So, for example, do a search for Power Apps. Notice others here like Power BI, Azure, etc. And subscribe to these. Listen, can't stress the importance. Once again, subscribe and hit this bell. What this bell will do is that each time somebody within this product team, a Power App, product team uploads a new video, you will get notified. So if you have the app on your phone, it will give you a little ding on screen saying, hey, there's a new video. So once again, you're getting the content the minute it's fresh, not like when you think about it or get around to it, you're getting it at the freshest possible point. So think about Microsoft are putting a lot of their video content nowadays on YouTube. In fact, all the BizApp Summit stuff is all actually hosted on YouTube. If you start watching those videos, you can see that pretty clearly. So consider this as another way. Now, remember, for every video here, you can comment on it. Comment when you're logged in. Notice I'm logged in here as NZ365 guy. So any comment I make on these videos, the people that are reviewing those comments, and this is probably coming more from the marketing side, but the videos engineering do will be handed to marketing. Marketing will post them up here. Once again, it's getting your name, you're commenting, you're engaging, you're adding value to the community and to Microsoft by engaging here. Next is events and conferences. You need to be considering what events and conferences that are going to enhance your career. So I'm going to run through all the events and conferences that I'm aware of and that you should be considering and deciding, you know, you're not going to be able to attend them all. Your employer, your budget's not necessarily going to be able to afford them all, but you should be considering which ones are of interest to you and that are going to have the biggest value in your career. So first of all, let's quickly talk about the ones run by Dynamics Communities. So Dynamics Communities, Inc. is a business in the US. It's an events and a conference company. Specifically, it's a conference company that focuses on Dynamics 365. A lot of people think that Dynamics Communities is a non-for-profit or a charity. It is not. It is a for-profit owned by one person, a guy called Andy. He owns Dynamics Communities. It's a multi-million-dollar business. And what they do is specialize in running events. That's their game. And so they have, of course, User Group Summit. Notice the one coming up in Orlando. I went to Amsterdam earlier this year, and for the first time, Australia is having a summit this year as well. Now, this is the biggest summit or the biggest event that Dynamics Communities put on. I try to always attend all of them. I was just offered by Dynamics Communities. They wanted to pay for me to go to Australia and present down there. I had speaking sessions lined up, but I'd made a commitment in Norway to be speaking at a D365 event on the same week. So I'm not going down there. And it's all the biggest reason, so far to fly, tell you the truth. But Amsterdam I've been to, as I say, and Orlando I'm going to in October. Orlando is, the US one is the biggest one, like 6,000–7,000 people. So bigger than BizApp Summit based on attendees attending this event. Fantastic, really, really well worth it. Okay. Next, Extreme 365. It also runs at the same time as the summits. This is aimed more at Microsoft partners, more executives and Microsoft partners, and how to run their Dynamics or Power Platform-based businesses effectively. So that's another one. I was a speaker at the one in Amsterdam this year, just earlier this year. The next one, of course, is going to be in Orlando. Once again, that's owned by Dynamics Communities. Now let's have a look at Microsoft. Microsoft has Microsoft Ignite, and they, of course, as an offshoot of that, they have the Microsoft Ignite World Tour. But this big Ignite event, you can see there, is in November 4th to the 8th, 2019, and it's in Orlando as well. So this covers all Microsoft technology. Yes, they do a few announcements around Microsoft BizApps, but by far and away, there's a lot of Azure content that's designed for the IT professionals, and customers alike. Anybody kind of working in IT or deep in the technology, a lot of content, a lot of sessions. You can see 700 plus deep dive sessions, 100 odd experts are going to be at these events. So massive, great event. I haven't attended any of these for a few years now. Sometimes individual countries run their own ones, but now it's the Microsoft Ignite World Tour in conjunction with this being the big event from Microsoft. For us, BizApp Summit is probably our biggest event that is put on by Microsoft. This was its second year this year. Last year it was in Seattle. This year it was in Atlanta, and next year it is in California. Once again, if this is just the one big event you can attend, I highly recommend you attending this. And, you know, I think of events for two things. Yes, you can learn some new stuff from the sessions, but the biggies for me is you network with people and you create connections with people and you experience the bigger community. You understand just how big what we are in is and the opportunities that are available. Fantastic place to, though, to connect and really understand the big part of the big thing that we're all a part of. Okay, with Microsoft communities, other things, consider Microsoft forums, right? Do you have an account in forums? Do you know where to go and search and find information? Once again, another place to establish your credibility and visibility with the Microsoft product teams. Look at Dynamics communities, right? Dynamics communities is a membership-based organization. Notice the login up here. Do you have a profile in communities? Do you have a complete profile? In other words, properly filled out, your photo. Are you looking at the forums and groups in there? Are you looking at the user groups associated with these? Dynamics communities are in 50+ countries with, as you can see, look at those. The number of discussions live inside there, over 300,000 members around the world make up Dynamics communities. Dynamics 365 Saturdays is another event that you should make sure that you either speak at or definitely attend any chance you get. More importantly, though, become a speaker at these. You know, proactively engage, start speaking, get your name out there by showing your expertise. And then, of course, user groups. There's a heap of user groups around the world. And I can't stress enough, not just to be an innocent bystander of these things. In other words, ask for speaking slots and or help organize them. Be proactive with these. Don't just be a sit on the fence partaker in the audience. Do that to start with, but for no more than 3 to 6 months. Then you should actually proactively engage and start developing your skills in speaking and building your credibility inside these organizations. And now let's consider the big community that a lot of people want to be a part of. Sorry, 1 second. I was going to give you my full volume.
The first rule of Fight Club is you do not talk about Fight Club. Second rule of Fight Club is you do not talk about Fight Club.
Okay, so why don't I put that up? Well, there's a lot of people that say you should never want to become an MVP. In other words, you shouldn't proactively talk about it out in the community. You shouldn't say, I want to become an MVP and do what you do so you become an MVP. Well, I've got interesting thoughts on that, and I feel that you should be good at what you do, right? You should have what it takes to become an MVP. And when I consider having what it takes, I'm talking about adding massive value. That's what it really takes to become an MVP. But of course, a lot of people have an aspiration to become an MVP. What steps should you take to get going on that journey and become part of this community? Because this is a very exclusive community. For example, last week, there were around 3,200 members in the community. This week, there's only 2,600. So this was the culling off period, the renewal, what's called the renewal period happened on Monday this week. And so as you can see, a lot of people very upset. Over 25 people within Microsoft Biz Apps all lost their MVP status last week. Gone. A lot of them were people that had been there longer than me, and I've been in the MVP program 8.5 years, are no longer in the MVP program. So it is very exclusive, and everybody gets evaluated whether they're allowed to be in the program or stay in the program based on their contribution in the community in the past 12 months. So I come back to a single thing. It's about adding value. But like, what are the key things you need to know to become an MVP? Number one, you need to have a competency. You need to be competent in a technology area. Why do Microsoft have MVPs? Because MVPs are kind of like mavens. Look up that word if you're not sure what a maven is. But basically, they're the early adopters. They're the people that stress test something. They're the people amongst their friends that are known as the person in the know. They're the insider. They hear the inside secrets, and that's why there's an NDA in place, because they're hoping that you'll give good feedback and make the product better. You're somebody that's thinking about the community and the technology as well. So competency, you need to choose, and that's why we talked about technology last week. Which area, which competency are you going to dominate in and be stronger? Next, what are you going to contribute? Now, there's many forms of contribution. They can be blogs. They can be answering forum questions. They can be having a YouTube channel and releasing YouTube videos regularly. They can be speaking at user groups. They can be running at user groups. You know, if you spoke 10 times in a year or was involved in running user groups around 10 times within a year, you'd be pretty much at the point that you'd qualify for entry. So you need to decide in your skill sets, is writing your thing, is podcasting your thing, is creating videos, live streaming, whatever it be, decide what it is. Push the envelope. Don't just do what everybody else is doing, but push the envelope. Get creative. I don't know if you saw the blog post, but around Orlando coming up, I'm doing a pub quiz to test who knows what about dynamics. It's what am I doing? I'm pushing the envelope, come up with a new idea, doing something different. Added to that, I've started live streaming every Wednesday. In fact, later today, I get on a live stream on YouTube, and that's now becoming a standard. Well, I've done it 2 weeks on the trot, and then the week prior to that was BizApp Summit, where we did a whole bunch, Stephen, Wadu and me. But what are we doing? We're pushing the envelope. We're trying something new. We don't see other people doing it. We're trying it and seeing if there's a new way to engage a different segment of the community. Have a voice, right? Have a voice. Become known for your skill set. Remember, I've talked about Ulrich von Lichtenstein. Ulrich, you know, the CRM chart guy. He had a competency in one area and he talked about it. He got known for it because he had a voice. And then become an evangelist of that product or that competency area, right? Microsoft have MVPs because it means they have all these people that are not on the payroll talking about their product and challenging them. It's not just about, you know, kumbaya, it's about challenging them as part of this. And of course, if you don't have any of those, have the X factor, have passion, have tenacity, have, you know, the ability to keep going when times get tough. But of course, you got to balance it with family life, your home life, your work life, that type of thing. And with that, I'm going to open it for questions. Yep, we've got time for questions. So come off mute and talk to me.
Hi, Mark. It's Paddy here.
Hey, Paddy.
One of the things I struggle with is that I feel I don't find I'm creative enough. So, like you said, find new ideas. Where do you find new ideas? Is it just everywhere, or you know, if you're you know want to say it's coming up to say submissions time, your MVP submissions got. Do you go out looking for ideas, or do you just grasp them in your every day?
So I have this app called MindNode, and so I'll give you the example. So the other day, I decided that I'm going to do a series on ISV. So all I did was put the word ISV, in the middle there. Let me go back. Where is it? I just put ISV in the middle. And then I do this on this device secondary. First, I just do it on a whiteboard. And then I was just like, okay, what do I know about ISVs? Well, I know people got a lot of questions around pricing, becoming a Microsoft partner, cost structure, customer relationships, value proposition. What are the ideas? How do I get my idea validated? Is there any established product already in market? Is there already a market for my idea? Has it been done before? Who's done it? So what I do is all this is mind mapping. And I do this for everything because I feel my mind works in pictures, not in text, if you like. And so what I'll do is that I will constantly be taking these ideas, grabbing them and doing something about them. I also then have this other product here called Draft. And Draft is basically just a note-taking app I can do on the fly. But if I go down here and I go, here we go, somehow, some way, so one thing, before I go to bed each night, I ask myself one question. This is me, if you like, programming my brain. I'll just show you here just so you can see I'm not making stuff up. So notice here, my sleep problem question I have on my app. And so before I go to bed, I like go, okay, I need to come up with a blog post area by tomorrow. What's that blog post going to be? And I go to sleep on it. And you will be surprised what your dreams do. Dreams are powerful in that they remove the constraints of all the reasons why you can't do something, right? You can be a bit naughty in dreams because nobody's judging you, right? They're your dreams. And so that's the beauty of your brain. It kind of removes the social norms and constraints and it allows it to fly free. And then you wake up in the morning and you're like, come back, oh, what's that blog idea? And you're just like, man, I've got it. I know what it's going to be. And then I'm always on the lookout. So for example, here's another post here, create a blog series on sales. So I've got here, so this just came to me. I don't know whether I was in a cafe or what, and I just wrote down Dynamics 365 for sales, AI for sales, technology-driven sales. Are you stuck in the 80s when it comes to sales, right? So those are, I just captured those and then I forget about it. And I'm just like, when I come time to write a blog, I then I just do a search for anything that has the word blog in it. I've got those ideas. Now, you take that idea there, and let me go back to my node, and let's see if I've done the sales one. So taking that one idea, there's my mind map for a whole post just on Dynamics 365 for sales has not changed in 20 years. Why? Right? That was my asking question. Look at all those ideas I came up around it just by having that one concept. So what I do is I have a way to always capture ideas, because ideas come to you in the weirdest of times. They don't come on a scheduled when you block out time to think of ideas, right? They come in the weirdest of times. So have tools that allow you to capture those ideas quickly and then set aside the time to grow those ideas. So as I say, last week I did this mind map. It'll be the post I'm intending to write for next week. And what was the other one? Dynamics 365 for LinkedIn. Dynamics 365 sales and LinkedIn after 3 years. Is this it? Which is about the LinkedIn integration to Dynamics CE. Once again, that was the starting of just that little text I'd put on sales, and then look at all the concepts I came up around it. So I'll now take that, and basically I'll turn each of these into headings, and then I'll write the content under those headings, which I'll do before Saturday, most likely. And so so I'm always looking. So if I look at the MVP series that I'm doing on YouTube at the moment, I can go in here, how to become an MVP. There's my mind map. Each one of those indicate one video, right? And so I'm just constantly training my mind, if you like, to come up with ideas. You will be on projects. When you're on projects is probably the biggest time you'll get struck with inspiration, because you'll find problems, you'll find challenges, and you'll have to solve them. And if you're having to solve them, somebody else in the world is going to have to solve them as well. And so they'll want your assistance, help, or insight. When I was at Magnetism, the amount of time staff would come to me and say, listen, I actually searched how to do something and I found my own blog post on it. You know, in other words, they would write it and 9 months later, they'd be doing it again. They'd be like, oh my gosh, I need to Google how to do that. And bang, they'd find their own blog post. So it's actually very good at clarifying your ideas and of course, adding value to the rest of the community. I do the same for, like, you know, next week I'm in Bristol, I think it is, at speaking at User Group. That's been launched there. And, you know, and I'm going to be talking on data models. And, you know, so I started off with the word data model. And from there, I just drew back in my mind of all my experience with data models and all the questions I've had. So I'd put them down. Then I Google what are people asking about data models, common data models and CDS, how do all these three things. And then there's the structure of my speech. And now I drill out, okay, what's the story behind what I'm going to be talking about? How do I make sure I use analogies that connect with people, that they can understand it, that type of thing. Really all the stuff in the TED Talk type thing, but because it's a public speaking type thing.
All right, fine. Yeah, that makes sense. Cheers. Thanks.
Awesome. Any other questions? Who's up? 5 minutes.
Hey, Mark, this is Raghav.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good, Mark. I just just curious to know about these things. Like in last cohort, we discussed about HR talent management, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not seeing much proposals or even like people into that, like people buying those products. And do you know, like, do you are aware of like people are into that HR management or talent? Because I believe like PeopleSoft or Workday, these guys have established a market long time back. So do you have any comments around those areas? Like,
I'm not the expert. We've got an MVP in this group that is an expert, right? She just became an MVP for talent. I reckon she's going to be the one to ask that question, right? Because if she's just become an MVP for talent, she must be doing a lot of work with talent, I would guess. So I'd reach out to her in Norway. What's her name? Anyone know what her name is? I forget. It starts with M. But connect with her, mate. That's the question you want to ask her, because she's working with it all the time. I'm not. All good?
Sure. I'll tag her. Yep. Sure, I'll do that.
She'll also have insights around the world. Anyone else got a question for me?
Hi, Mark. I've got another question, if that's okay.
Yeah, good, good.
Follow on from another one from the previous question. So say you've got an idea for a blog post, and you do it. You think, okay, I'm going to do this blog post, and you start writing the blog post, but then you find out someone else has kind of done something similar. Do you continue and do blog posts, or
yeah, you continue, definitely, but don't plagiarize anything, because remember, the way you explain something, the stories you use to give you illustration might be the one that resonates with that person that reads it.
Okay.
Right? And the other thing is, that aside, right, you're adding another valuable piece of content to the community, written in a way that only you can write, because that's your art, that's your creativity. And as I say, it could appeal to somebody else. But that aside, it still builds your brand and credibility as a secondary thing, as a, you know, that you've got expertise in that area.
Okay. Cheers.
Yep. Anybody else? Three minutes. Okay, if you're watching this video later on, make sure you use the comment section, ask your questions in the group chat there, because let's get your questions answered. We've only got 2 cohorts to go, so we're in the home stretch now, basically next week and the week after, and we're done. And it'll go into one-on-one time. So you guys will have the opportunity to book a one-on-one with me and basically tell me what you're going to do, as in the next 3 years, career-wise. How are you going to take what you've learned? What's your plan going to do? You're going to create a presentation and present back to me your career plan, because I want you to get, when we walk away at the end of this 90 days, I want you to have real solid content, right? In other words, a real solid content plan, or a plan for where your career is going. So think about working on your presentation. It'll be a first come, first serve for getting my time at the after the 6th cohort to schedule with me and me go through and kind of be a sounding board for where you kind of want to steer your career over the next 12, 24, 36 months. So be thinking about that. But with that, we're at the top of the hour. Time to wrap it up. I'll save off here. I'll stop the share and the recording. And I will see you all on the next cohort next week. Ciao.